Short exercise 18-7, classifying costs. So what we're going to do here is take some costs and classify them as either product costs, which means they are a cost of making the product, or a period cost, which is the cost of not making a product. Period costs would be things like the accountant's salaries, the cashier's salaries. They are not involved with making the product. So product costs are broken down into either direct costs or indirect costs. Direct costs are either direct materials, the materials that go directly into the cost of the product, or direct labor. These are the people who work directly with making the product. So a direct material is something that can be traced to the cost object. The cost object is being the product in this case. And there are types of costs that cannot be directly traced to a certain product. And these are things like indirect materials, like glue. You can't really trace how much glue is used on each greeting card or each guitar, whatever the product is. And indirect labor, these are people who work with the products, like in the warehouse or the janitor who sweeps the factory floor, but they don't work on building the product or creating the product directly. And then other manufacturing overhead. These are things like the insurance for the plant, the utilities for the plant, depreciation for the plant. All right, so Granger's Cards is a manufacturer of greeting cards. We're going to classify its cost by matching the cost to the terms. So here we got direct materials, direct labor, indirect materials, indirect labor, and other manufacturing overhead. So the artist's wages. So these artists are working directly with creating the cards, so they are direct labor. The wages of the warehouse workers. They are working with the product, so it is a product cost. Their wages are a product cost, but they don't work with creating the greeting cards directly. So these are indirect costs, indirect labor. Paper. Well, obviously paper is used to make the greeting cards, so that is a direct material because it can be traced to the certain or the different batches of greeting cards. Depreciation on the manufacturing equipment. Since this depreciation is for equipment that's used in making the product, it is a product cost, but it cannot be tied directly to a certain batch of greeting cards. So this would be considered other manufacturing overhead. Then we have the manufacturing plant manager's salary. So because it's the plant manager's salary, in other words, this person is helping make the cards, it is a product cost. But this person does not make the cards directly. They just manage the whole plant. So this is an indirect labor cost. And then we have property taxes on the manufacturing plant. So because it's a cost of the manufacturing plant, it is a product cost. It's not a period cost, but it's just a property tax. Now these property taxes cannot be traced to one batch of greeting cards or another, so this is just an other manufacturing overhead. And then we have glue for the envelopes. Now glue for the envelopes, these are a product cost, and it is a material for the greeting cards. So we have to figure out, is it a direct material, which means it can be traced directly to a certain greeting card or a batch of greeting cards, or is it indirect material which cannot be traced to a specific batch of cards? Well, or it's indirect means it's not. It could also mean that it's not cost effective. So we could measure the glue on each greeting card envelope, but it's not cost effective to do that. So this material is an indirect material. Number 3. So now, hopefully you did not skip the video on classifying costs, because in this whole quarter we're going to be using the classification of these costs quite a bit. So you really need to understand this.